Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Well, decided to take a little excursion today, middle of the week, it's a Wednesday, to Starved Rock State Park. And the reason is it's bluebell season here. If you can see, I'm kind of sitting in front of some bluebells. Looks like they're somewhat past peak. So was going to try and get down here last week, but wasn't able to. So that's the way it goes. I'll still be able to get some nice photos. But hopefully I'll be able to get some nice shots. It's a good day for photography. There's some sunshine coming through, but it's mostly cloudy. I think it's supposed to get even more cloudy as the day goes by. So, but bluebells. So these bluebells, I've been watching some of the folks over in the UK. It's their bluebell season. Our bluebells here are Virginia bluebells, and they are, other than their plants, they are not really at all closely related to the bluebells in the UK and Europe. So those bluebells, I forget the species name, are monocots. So that's in the same group that includes things like grasses, some garden plants like irises and daffodils and the like. And monocots, when the seed sprouts, there's one seedling leaf, monocot. They're called cotyledons, monocot. These bluebells, which are the species Mertensia virginica, are dicots. So when the seed sprouts, there are actually two cotyledons or seedling leaves. So that's the big difference. And when did those two groups of plants split off? About 200 million years ago, give or take 40 or so, according to the scientific data. Got a little bit of bugs in here, but it's not too bad. There seem to be mosquitoes, seems to be just little gnats and stuff. So this is what's called Illinois Canyon, and you can't really tell it's a canyon from here, but as I go further back into it, you'll see this is the furthest east publicly accessible canyon in Starved Rock State Park. There are a couple of others that are on private property further over to the east. I've seen people put photos. You know, if you get caught in there, you're going to get arrested for trespassing. So I'm going to head to the back of this canyon. It's a nice little spot back there where the creek flows out of actually a very narrow slot canyon, which used to be accessible, but it's off limits now. And then when I'm done here, I'm going to go over to the next two canyons to the west, which have nice waterfalls. So let's see what kind of photos I get. Well, yeah, it definitely would have been better to have been here last week, because the bluebells are kind of on their way out. If you look here, you see sort of in the middle towards the bottom third of the frame, you see pink flower there, that's wild geranium. But Starved Rock is a fantastic place to come if you enjoy wildflowers or if you want to photograph wildflowers, because it's not just bluebells. I mean, it's nice when you come here late April. It's now the first week in May, and the bluebells are just kind of carpeting the forest. And as we all know, bluebell photos, whether they're the Virginia bluebell or the bluebell they have over in Europe, just is a really cool thing in the spring to have a forest floor carpeted with them. Here is another spring wildflower, wild phlox, wild blue phlox. And as I said, lots of wildflowers here. Well, here's the first hint that you're actually in a canyon. You've got this St. Peter sandstone rock face over here on the right. Towards the left there is another wall. This is kind of a very wide canyon until you get to the very back. But it is very picturesque in here. This is primarily a photo channel, so let's talk photo equipment. Today, in my low pro photo backpack, which put a video up a couple years ago about how I got this low pro backpack for 12 bucks. It's about $100 backpack. Bought it at a local thrift store. But today, what am I shooting with today? I have my G9 Mark II, my Lumix G9 Mark II, the 14-140 zoom lens. So I kind of decided to go a little lighter instead of taking my 12-35 and 35-100, kind of the do-it-all lens on the wide and ultra-wide side. I've got the Leica 8-18 millimeter. So I expect when we get further back in the canyon, I'll probably be using that. And just in case I see like a bald eagle, because there are bald eagles around here, I have the 100-300 Lumix lens. So pretty much covered from 8 millimeters or 16 millimeter full frame field of view equivalent to 300 or 600 full frame field of view equivalent. And I think I picked the perfect day because like the sun is coming in and out of the clouds. So nice overcast, nice saturated colors. I'm going to continue on with my hike. You know, this is a pretty spot, one of my favorites. Got a redbud tree over here on the other side of the creek from the canyon wall. I think we're a little late for that too, so about a week ago it would have been a lot more intense. Funny thing is, if you go out into the southwest, the canyons out there, you'll find redbud trees growing in the bottom of those canyons because that's where the water is, out in those arid areas. So I photographed this spot quite a few times and had one of those resulting photos licensed as stock. One thing about hiking Illinois Canyon here is you have to ford the creek several times, and it hasn't been especially wet lately, so this is where you cross. Sometimes the water comes up and covers all of these river rock here, but right now the creek is fairly low, so probably pretty easy to cross. Let's see. This is the second ford. This one's a lot easier than the first one. There's one more where you have to walk through the creek. Now I brought polarizing filters with me, but I'm trying not to use them. I'll tell you one reason why is in the spring, and this is true of a lot of creeks and so on, the bottom of the creek is kind of brown and muddy. And so if you use a polarizer, you got to be careful. You don't want to over polarize, because if you do, you're just going to see this brown, muddy creek bottom. And so I'm kind of avoiding that. And it seems like most of the time in the spring, the leaves are not completely, shiny. So you can sometimes get away with that. If the clouds come back over, it's not as much of a problem as it is if sunlight is hitting the leaves. So, but I like seeing some of a reflection in the water. I mean, just getting rid of the reflection entirely is something that you can do with a polarizer. Well, not completely entirely, but you really tamp down on it. But if the body of water isn't like a nice blue lake, you can run into trouble with all the mud on the bottom. further back in the canyon now. This is kind of a nice scene. I just wanted to point out this tree sort of just left of center. That's a tulip tree, also known as a yellow poplar. It's not at all related to the poplars. It's in the magnolia family. It's a big old tree. These and tulip trees can get huge. Down in the Great Smoky Mountains, there is what's left of, it might not be there anymore, but years ago there was the trunk of a tulip tree that had been, it was very old, taken down in a storm. I will tell you that tree was 2 to 3 times the diameter of this one here. This one's pretty big for Illinois, but these things can get absolutely gigantic. I have reached the end of the trail here in Illinois Canyon. So it's a nice little spot. Not much of a waterfall, but just pretty anyway. You see the creek flows out of that kind of a slot canyon back there into the main canyon. And I say 20 more years ago, you used to be able to actually climb a staircase over to the left that went to the top of the cliff, and you could walk back around the backside of this slot canyon and continue on a trail over to the right on the other side of the canyon and back towards the lodge. But that is off limits now because this sandstone is very, very delicate, and you cannot go places where you might cause damage. Probably a decade or more ago, I was back here with Beth and a friend of ours from Seattle who couldn't believe there was a place like this near Chicago. But we came back here and we saw 5 probably late teens, early 20s kids, like 5 of them. They were up there on top of that cliff to the left and coming down, and we got back here and there was a DNR officer back here with a digital camera recording them, and they got arrested. So you want to be careful, and there's a huge fine if you're caught out of bounds here. So you want to be really careful, but you should really respect the delicacy of this habitat and not go where you shouldn't. Also, there are swallows that nest in these cliffs. They are not cliff swallows. They are actually rough-winged swallows, but they nest in little cracks on the cliffs. And this is a perfect spot because there's all kinds of insects that may spend part of their life cycle down in that little pool. And so, just a very, very pretty spot. Nice little scene here. A bunch of wild geraniums growing on the forest floor. Pretty little plant. When we had our house, I had a bunch of these in the backyard. It was pretty cool. Attracted a lot of pollinators. Well, this is the council overhang. If I walk over here, you can see this big overhang up here. And I don't know, it's a good 40 feet from the top down to here. A few years back, they were filming a movie in here. I don't know if they had permission, but this is young folks. And one of them went up on top of that overhang, and unfortunately, he fell off, and he didn't make it. So this can be a really dangerous place if you go where you're not supposed to. There's the rock wall I mentioned. Prehistoric Native Americans built this. I said I thought maybe it was for defensive purposes. Almost looks like a stage because the overhang is over to the right. It looks like you could put on a show here. Although, if you put the stage over in the back of the overhang, you'd get some pretty interesting acoustics. And here is the view from the back of the overhang. So, very cool place. You can get a lot of interesting shots here, or just listen to the quiet. This is Ottawa Canyon, and cliffs here are higher than they are in Illinois Canyon. This is a much more narrow canyon. But unfortunately, even though there was some rain recently, the creek looks like it's not flowing real well. So we'll see how good the waterfall is when we get back to the back of the canyon. Well, there is a fair amount of water coming over the falls, so that's nice. And in the winter, you can get back behind those falls. I don't know that I'm going to be able to this time. I have moved on from Ottawa Canyon and now into Kaskaskia Canyon. And there's a nice little waterfall in the back of this one, a little different type of waterfall, not as tall, but more of a cascade. It reminds me of a waterfall I saw once way out in either Montana or the Pacific Northwest somewhere. So, but I think probably still a fair amount of water flowing over it, given the creek here. And this is the Kaskaskia Canyon waterfall. So it seems like when there's floods, trees get brought down to the bottom of this waterfall. That one log on the larger one, sort of in the center, between the other two, that's been here for ages. Don't know about the other two. I can go back and look at old pictures, but there's a nice, quiet little spot. There's also a place in here where they're pretty sure there's also another overhang. Not as big, but remains of a prehistoric camp are in here. And imagine, 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, natives camping in this spot. It must have been just, a really great place to be. Unless there was a heavy thunderstorm, because, if the flood's going to bring down trees that size, it's a pretty massive flood. I am back home, and that was actually coming up on 2 weeks ago. Got back, got busy, couldn't put the video together, but finally got it done. Just a couple things I wanted to follow up on, just as I mentioned in the subtitle. I ended up not using the 100 to 300. Matter of fact, if I head back down to Starved Rock, I may not take the 100 to 300, lighten the load a bit, taking the 14 to 140 plus either the 8 to 18 millimeter, or I also have the Leica 9mm f1.7 prime. So obviously this weighs more than this does. So if you're traveling really, really light, the 14 to 140, it goes wide enough. And if you don't mind using a prime stuck at 9mm, this is an excellent lens. Also has the advantage that it opens up all the way to f1.7, whereas this is a variable aperture from f2.8 to 4 as you zoom to 18 millimeters. So both of them very nice lenses, and I was pretty happy with the performance of this lens on that hike. So nice thing about that place is from here, it's not even 90 minutes from if I leave here, as long as I don't hit rush hour. The problem with things in this area is that if you want to go when there aren't a lot of other people there, you have to leave fairly early and beat rush hour. Because if you hit rush hour in this area, Chicago is noted as having possibly the very worst traffic in the United States. I mean, it can be insanely bad, but beautiful place. Gets a lot of love from people. I mean, there's over 3 million visitors a year to that relatively small state park. And to put things in perspective, I think Glacier National Park, which is obviously a much larger area in Montana, gets just under 4 million. So Starved Rock is one of the most popular state parks in the country. A lot of geology there, a lot of history, a lot of nature and wildflowers. It's just a really, really neat place. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. If you did, pop the thumbs up button. That's a big help to me. Any questions, comments, leave them down below. I'm Todd Banner. I will see you next time.